short period of time. And immediately after we buried my father, I found out that I actually caught my husband cheating. And that was the most devastating period of my life. When you say, how low can I go? You don't think that you can bounce back from losing three close people to you in a very close time. And then the one that you thought had your back, the one that you thought was your everything, your Prince Charming, your knight in shining armor, would betray you and turn his back on you the way that he did because you were not dealing with grief the way that he felt you should. You weren't coming out of your grieving stage in a year. I was the youngest. I was my mama's baby. And I was very close to my mom. And it was really hard for me. And then losing my sister and my dad, that was even more devastating. And I lost my mom right before my 30th birthday, the big 3-0. Um, but anyway, speeding up, I endured a lot of physical, emotional, and verbal abuse throughout the next years from 2003 up until I left October 5th, 2007. After I left, it was a bitter breakup. Um, I left and I started to rebuild my life, but I seemed to not be able to go on. I was grieving all over again, from having to file for a divorce. And deep in my heart, I still love my husband. I just couldn't trust him anymore. And it was a constant argument. So it got so bad that I knew it was time to go. Well, I um, was on a business trip, got sick, and that night when I came home, I couldn't breathe. And the person that I was dating at the time was living with me. And he told me, if you're not feeling any better when you wake up, I'm going to take you to the emergency room. Well, I got to the point where I couldn't barely walk from the bathroom to the bedroom. And I called out for him. And he decided, okay, we're taking you to the emergency room. When I got to the emergency room, they tested me for everything that you could imagine. And the final diagnosis was about to be um, leukemia, of all things, leukemia. Here I was preparing myself for death, maybe a long treatment process, losing my hair. But then there was one doctor that came in and said, it's some infection somewhere in your body. I want to check one other test. And he came back and he said, the test that I want to give you is an HIV test. And I looked and he said, it's okay. It's no longer a death sentence. He said, but I want to make sure before we start you on treatment tonight. So they ran the test and it took about an hour for it to come back. And when he came back, he said the test was positive. And then went on to say, he asked my mate, and my mate was there. He was very, very, very supportive. He kissed my tears away, told me, we're going to get through this. It's okay. And then I was like, okay, now that we know it's not leukemia, can I go home? And they was like, no, we can't send you home, because I was so devastated. Not only that, they wanted to start me on treatment immediately so that I wouldn't get sicker than what I was. Um, they had me on suicide watch for 2 days. It was 2 days. For 2 days, they had me on suicide watch. And I was in a room, isolated. by myself. And I thought it was because of my diagnosis, but they were telling me no, it's because we want to watch you closely, and we want to know how bad the infection is, because you're not a threat to anybody else. They're more of a threat to you. And so we don't want you to get sicker than what you are. So they ran the test, and after 2 days, they moved me into a regular room. And I was still coping and dealing with everything. But I had some of the best nurses, psychiatrists, and therapists, doctors. They told me because of some of the damage to my heart and other things that I wasn't going to be able to go back to work anymore. They started filing my paperwork and all of this. And I was like, no, I'm not going to let this take me out like that. So what happened is I ended up going back home, and they had me on so many antibiotics that my kidneys started to fail. So 2 weeks after that, being at home, I had to go right back in the hospital. I was in ICU. I had to do dialysis for one time and a blood transfusion. They did all of this, and I it's more to the story, but I wanted to come to you to tell you all to get tested, know your status, know the status of your spouse. Marriage is no longer a safe haven for anybody. You can still get HIV. You don't have to be a prostitute. You don't have to be a drug user. All you have to do is have one little act of infidelity, and it can change your whole life. It did mine. I never got an apology from my ex-husband, and I don't need one, because I know that God, everything that God brings me through, He'll bring me through. And this was just a stepping stone. Just a stepping stone. And my life hasn't changed much. I did retire. I'm living a good life. I feel good. Besides the weight gain, I feel like I have more life to live. And I'm never going to let my status stop me from living and loving. I can have a normal relationship. People are scared because they're not educated, but that's why I'm here. If you have any questions, if you have anything that you want to know about this virus, feel free to ask. Don't let ignorance and stupidity consume you and keep you from loving those that need you the most. I'm going to end this video right here because I feel myself getting a bit emotional. But don't ever feel sorry for me, because everything that has happened to me in my life, in my marriage, has only made me stronger, better, and even more beautiful. Not only on the outside, because I may not be attracted to some people, but it made my soul beautiful in God's eyes. And HIV doesn't stand for human, I can't even say it. My mind is just gone. But what HIV stands for to me is heaven in view, not human immunodeficiency virus. It means heaven in view. I want to give you a little closer look at my tattoo. Actually, my tattoo is supposed to be 3 colors. The bottom part is pink for breast cancer. My mom was a breast cancer survivor. The middle part here is purple, and it's for domestic violence. And the upper part, I don't have good lighting, is red for HIV. But HIV stands for heaven in view for me. So, until later, have a wonderful afternoon and a great evening, my sparkling gems. And remember, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Don't be afraid. Don't be ashamed. That's what I'm here for. Bye.